Welcome to our 9th History Tidbit. I am Helen Alton, the director of the Haynes Sheldon Museum, and I'm pleased that you could join us again. This week we are going to be focusing on the agriculture and animal husbandry of the valley, which is something that everybody really probably knows something about, but it's broader than I realized when I started researching this topic. And this is a picture of the E.A. Adams Berry Ranch, and we'll get some more information about the Adamses. So this first one on Wednesday, we're going to talk about the plants and the food, the agricultural plants. And then on Friday, we will be discussing the animals that are in our valley. The Pioneer Press in 1913 had an article that was interesting and prescient. It says, "The man with the hoe is destined to occupy the place of the man with the pick and gold pan so far as revenue from our fertile valleys are concerned. Today, our ranch products are being consumed in Cordova, Juneau, Whitehorse, and Dawson. They will soon be sold in all other cities of the North Coast and sold at a higher price because they are fresher and better in quality. Truly, the hoe and the man behind the hoe represents the future." A few years later, there was a brochure from the Haynes Chamber of Commerce, and we are named the Garden Spot of Alaska, home of the big red strawberry. So there is no date on this brochure, but it does talk about the federal government road running from Haynes through the Chilkat Valley will be completed to the Canadian border in 1925. So this is before 1925. And they state that in the Chilkat Valley, there are now upwards of 40 homesteads available for entry that are suited to agriculture, according to the estimate of a representative of the Department of Agriculture made last fall. The products of this ground could include wheat, oats, rye, and barley, and nearly every vegetable has been raised here, having a healthy and rapid growth, including cabbage, cauliflower, potatoes, turnips, rutabagas, string beans, peas, carrots, parsnips, beets, radishes, lettuce, celery, and rhubarb. All small fruits flourish abundantly: currants, raspberries, loganberries, gooseberries, and our strawberries, which is capitalized. The wonderfulness of the richness of the food available in our valley just is emphasized in this brochure. And as most of us know who live here, we can grow just about anything. We can even grow corn and bok choy and other things that aren't listed in this list. In our collection, we have the Farmer's Pocket Ledger, and this was from the Farmer's Supply Company in Michigan. It's dated 1946, and it has some catalog information. It also is an address book and a place to write receipts and egg records and stock breeding records, and there are handwritten notes throughout. We don't know whose book this was. At least I'm not able to find that information, partly because I'm not physically at the museum, but this is the sort of thing that a farmer would have received for free from their supplier and then used while organizing their thoughts about their crops and what succeeds and what doesn't, and what their revenue is. This is a farm, Sydney Stride's farm, and we're looking at strawberry fields, and you can see how close it is to town. And much of town had big gardens. There are we have images in the collection of cabbage gardens, things that people grew. They would grow one or two things that they really liked, or they would have a full fledged garden. But this one is one of the strawberry gardens in town. Now we're going to focus primarily on some of the out-of-town farms. So this is the Presbyterian Mission, and now much of this is First and Second Street. The clinic would be over here. The museum is over here. And this would be Main Street along here. And the farms that we're going to look at are Charles Anway Farm, which is out near the golf, right across from the golf course. The Joe Smith Farm, which is really all roads right now, and the DOT area. Jack Rath Farm, which is where the Eagle's Nest Motel is. And I don't have any images of these farms here, but the Henderson farm would be up here. And this is a view a little later of town, and it shows you how empty the area is here where the mission is farming. All of this is farmlands. You've got the two houses for Haynes House, and then the farm buildings are over here. And then you can see how much property is property. Basically, each block was a house, and then a lot of farming was occurring on the land that people had there. We were making what are called cottage gardens. It was rare for fresh fruits and vegetables to get up here. The barge only would come once a month or maybe less, and so we relied on creating our own food quite a bit. So first we're going to talk about Charles Anway's property. It was 121 and a half acres. This is the farmhouse, which is now owned by the Chilkat Valley Historical Society. It's right across from our golf course and at 1 mile on Haynes Highway. And the story is that he walked from town out and then set his claim. Here's his strawberries. He was an agriculturalist, and he experimented with local strawberries and strawberries that were imported. And he got some strawberry starts from his friends up at Porcupine. He had been a miner and then decided to farm. And so he ended up creating, partly by luck, a really nice big strawberry. And here's the processing rooms that this building no longer exists, but where the strawberries were packed and processed. And this is a close-up of the strawberries, and they're so big that you really only needed 2 or 3 of them. And they were the size of eggs. So here they are in egg cartons. He also went to North Dakota and found a yellow translucent apple that he thought if it lives in North Dakota, it will live in Alaska. And he brought that up, and these are people in front of the apples when they're in bloom. And we have an apple tree in front of the museum that he brought to us. He one day arrived with, the museum is sitting where the mission house used to be, and he arrived with this tree in a wheelbarrow that he walked from his farm, and he dug a hole and planted it and said, "This is for the children of Haynes." And basically, Haynes House was just over to the side here. So there were a lot of children there, and so he was giving apples for those children to eat. The next one that we're going to look at is the Jack Roth farm, and this is where the Eagle's Nest Motel, and you can see the cemetery is right next to it. The Eagle's Nest Motel, Sawmill Creek Road, and the trailer park are all in this area. And here he is. He farmed from 1910 to 1925. He's outstanding in his field. And here he is among his strawberry plants. This is his house and barn. He has 3 visitors, and here he is, and these are the 3 visitors, about 1916 or 1920. And this is again his strawberry fields, 3 men who are holding buckets of strawberries, Jack Roth here. And this is the cable officer, Sergeant McDermott. And we talked about the cable office and the signal office in one of the earlier history talks. We don't know the name of this soldier. He's just a soldier from the 30th Infantry. This is his homestead. You can see how long the homes are. In the background is Mount Rapinski and his fields. Another view of his fields. Now, there's a question about what happened to Jack. Bob Henderson wrote in his book that in November 1919, another neighbor, Jack Roth, decided to give up farming and move south. Thus, the ranks of the farming community were drastically reduced with the loss of these 2 fine farmers, Roth and Joe Smith. However, we have in the archives a letter from the U.S. Marshal to Steve Sheldon on March 1923 that implies that Jack Roth went missing after being last seen in Juneau on November 24th, 1922. So we're not exactly sure what happened to Jack. He was supposed to be on the boat the Peterson headed for Wrangell. Whether he was ever located after this point is unknown. The next property is between Anway and Jack Rath is the Joe Smith property. Joe Smith farmed between 1900 and 1921, and we don't have a lot of information about Joe Smith. This is his house. And this is his house again here in the distance and the fields. So this is viewed from Jack Rath's property about 1912. Next, we're going to talk about the Adams, Allen, and then Henderson property. It's the same farm. It was first farmed by the Adams, and then became the Allen Dairy, and then the Henderson property. And it's up at the top here. It was not on the map, but I assume it's right about here. The Henry Andis property is the property that has been subdivided, and Comstock, sort of from Comstock Road. This is an image of Ed and Anna Adams and their house and their fields in the farming years 1900 and 1925. It was an early enterprise, and it was later farmed by P.B. Allen and then R.E. Henderson. This is the farm before 1920. You can see that some of the trees have just been cut and the fields are getting opened up and getting cleaned out. This is a picture of Mrs. Anna Adams among her flowers in about 1925. And it was photographed by Martha Pipperite, who lived at Haynes House, who was one of the people working at Haynes House. In 2012, not 1912, this pipe was discovered at the former residence of Mr. and Mrs. E.A. Adams. And here we have a little bit longer date. So our archives conflict in terms of the dates that they were farming. According to Bob Henderson, the Adams raised tobacco and cured it in their attic, and he thought they must have used this pipe. And this is raspberries being grown at the Adams farm. After the Adams, Allen Dairy took over the Adams farm, and we'll be talking about Allen Dairy next week, on Friday, when we talk about animals. And then Henderson purchased the farm, and he was a teacher at the school, but he provided fresh vegetables and pasturage for horses. So here are some images of the vegetables that he produced: cabbages, cauliflower, broccoli. He's famous for his carrots. These are the carrots. Potatoes, strawberries, and with peas in the background, beans, and these are the apple trees, and these are some of the yellow apples. And he was also famous for growing corn. He invented a method by which we can grow corn in the valley, and that is to plant the seeds and then put clear plastic over the dirt so it warms up, and then cut slits in the plastic so the plants come out from that. So it's basically kind of a little flat greenhouse approach. And some more of the plants that he's growing: onions, garlic. Now, there's a couple areas that aren't on our map, and one of those is out at the tank farm, which is currently our tank farm. And this was a farm that was originally from the Allens and then became owned by Owen and Verl Lewis right after the World War II. So this is the Allens' home in the area of the ferry terminal, and this is their potato field, and the ocean can be seen in the background. This is Furl Lewis out amid the flowers in their farm. And it's just beautiful location. And this is Verl with a tractor in the garden, and their house is in the background there. And you can see cabbages here. This looks like corn. It's not a very good photo, but it looks like it's corn. And this is their house again. We have a series of pictures on the construction of the tank farm, and this was one of the first pictures showing the start of the construction with the homestead still visible and some of the piping and stuff being brought in. So this is as the farm was sold and was now being converted to the tank farm. So another area that farmed, of course, was the mission. And as I said, there's a lot of land here that was farmed. And this is the farm barn where the animals were. And this is the farmer's house. And this is a garden just basically for vegetables in that area. The farmer was Herman Turner, and his wife was a teacher, Edith Turner, one of the farmers. And these are the children out working in the fields, weeding. They were animals, and we'll talk about these animals on Friday, but part of their farming was they raised the feed for the animals, the hay. And these are some of the boys from Haynes House. The boys from Haynes House worked with the animals more than the girls did. Another place that had farming was Fort Seward, and here are the potato plants at Fort William H. Seward. They farmed from 1902 to 1946. And the farms were behind the barracks building, and then behind the officers' buildings were also farms. The BIA school in Cluckwan also had a garden, and it gardened from 1907 to 1942. And here are some of the children working it. And at Glacier Point, there was a potato farm. Mr. Gorham in the 1920s had a potato ranch, Henry Gorham. And this is a picture of him. 18 Mile is still a farm. And in 1918, it was owned by a Benjamin, and I don't know how to pronounce it, Wizumas. It's spelled two different ways. And he was a farmer, and you can see the gate to the farm there. He was known as 18 Mile Ben, and he lived and farmed out of the Haynes Highway at 18 Mile. So that's some of the farming history from the Haynes area. An activity for your children might be to get some seeds and dirt and paper cup, put some holes in the cup at the bottom. And the best seeds, I think, for small children are beans because they sprout quickly. They make a nice big plant. And you can put them in an outdoor planter later, and they will make beans for you to eat. So it's a fun activity. I'd like to thank you for joining us for History Tidbits today. I'm Helen Alton, and we do have more information on our website, and also these recordings will be on YouTube. Thank you very much.